much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what we are doing is to consider the ad hoc report that presented its report on the 13th of January 2022. Mr. Speaker, I move that we adopt that report, and I move that consistent with the provisions of section 161, subsection 8, subsection B, we resolve, this House resolve that the Zimbabwe Election Commission must reconsider its preliminary report on the basis of the issues and the recommendations that have been made by the ad hoc committee. I move that we take that resolution that ZEC should reconsider its interim report on the basis of the findings of the ad hoc committee. That is the constitutional position. Mr. Speaker, the test of whether ZEC did a good job was always going to be measured on three issues. Number one, procedurally, when they were making the report, did they follow the law? Number two, whether the interim report is loyal to the principles that are defined in section 161, 5 and 6. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, whether the data supports the findings and recommendations in the interim report. On all three scores, Mr. Speaker said, on all three scores, on all three fronts, ZEC failed and failed this month. On the first procedural issue, Mr. Speaker said, ZEC failed to consider the final report of the census. And this point is made in the ad hoc report. There is a correlationship between the task of delimitation and the population. That's why section 160 makes it clear that every 10 years, so soon after the conclusion of a census, there must be a delimitation. But when you look at the ZEC processes, there is no marriage, there is no nexus, there is no connection between the interim report and the population. And if you go, Mr. Speaker, to section 161, subsection 6, in dividing Zimbabwe into wards and constituencies, the Zimbabwe Elected People must, in respect of any area, give consideration to the following features: physical features, the means of communication, the geographical distribution of registered voters, and its population. But ZEC did not consider the population. They published a list sometime last year, had a delimitation of constituencies, wards, and other electoral boundaries, national, provincial, and local authority voter registration figures. It was produced in terms of section 161, subsection 6, signed by ZEC Chairperson P. Chibuma. And it has a total population, so total registered voters of 5.8,376,000. Yet this document does not give a constituency disaggregation of the population in each of these constituencies or provinces, because that's a constitutional imperative. So that's failure number one on procedural issues. Failure number two on procedural issues relates to the failure to produce even to the ad hoc committee a copy of the voters' roll that they used. We are just told, Mr. Speaker, without verification, without authentication, without validation, that the total number of registered voters is 5.8, but the actual voters roll itself has not been given. A third procedural issue picked up in the report, Mr. Speaker said, is the failure to consult citizens. The committee report refers to section 68 of the Constitution. Section 68 codifies the outer and petem rule. The outer and petem rule simply means the right to be heard. ZEC did not consult citizens. ZEC did not consult constituencies. So ZEC produced a report without any paternity, any legitimacy vis-a-vis the citizens. So these things are well made in the report presented by Honorable Tokarepi. They failed on procedural issues. The second issue, Mr. Speaker, is whether they paid respect to the factors that are defined in section 161, subsection 6. If you look at the areas that were most affected by constituent collapse, Harare, Hutu, Mashingo, Manicaland, and so forth, Mashonaland East, the process is autocratic. The process is not based on any formula. It's like playing tennis with a changing baseline. I know the Australian Open is on right now. When you play tennis with a changing baseline, sometimes you are returning panic space to obey, sometimes you are returning producing. In law we call it eclectic. In law we call it cutting and pasting. That's what they did. There is no consistent adherence to a known formula. I submit, Mr. Speaker, that the starting point Mr. Speaker, the starting point must be that ZEC says the total number of registered voters is 5.8. And ZEC gives a disaggregation of these numbers. The exact figure is 5,804,376. And they give the disaggregated figures as of the 30th of May 2022. Bulawayo Metropolitan Province 270,000, Harare 952,000, Manicaland 738, Mashonaland Central 536,000, Mashonaland East 641,000, Mashonaland West 661,000, Mashingo 622,000, Mat North 340, Mat South 267, Midlands 762,000. There are 210 constituencies. So if you divide 210 constituencies into 5.8, it gives you a figure of 27,000. The Constitution in 640. The Constitution starting point is that constituencies must be equal. That means the starting point by ZEC should be that every constituency of the 210 must have 27,640. But when you now go to what they did, even constituencies that were above 30,000 were being collapsed. Even constituencies that were bigger than those that were collapsed into were collapsed. So there's no consistent formula. That's not good enough, Mr. Speaker. So, as we say in the report, as the committee says in the report, the 20% rule was misinterpreted. The 20% rule is on 27,640%. So, but what ZEC did now is that they've got a low figure of 22,000 and an upper figure of 34,000. And if you subtract 34,000 minus 22,000, you get a variation of 50% when the constitutional limit is 20%. So, what they must do is to go back to the drawing board. Go back to the drawing board, divide the 5.8, marry it with population, and come up with a figure of 27,640. So every constituent now has 27,640. Plus or minus, but the minus is minus 10 going up, minus 10 going down, so that you remain loyal to 20%. And they can do that, Mr. Speaker. And if you do that, Mr. Speaker, if you do that, it means all the fun and games, all the shenanigans that ZEC did, for whatever reason, will go away. Let's be loyal to data. Let's be loyal to the figures. Let's be loyal to the statistics. If we do that, Mr. Speaker said, we are home and dry. And they've got time, Mr. Speaker. They've got, the law says the report must be done 6 months before. And the 6 months end on the 28th of February, 2023. And as I believe, Mr. Speaker, if they do that deadstock process, they should be able to. I want to come and give an example of the anomalies vis-a-vis.
On a point of order, I move that the members' time be extended by 10 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
Honorable Speaker said, the report does justice to Mashonaland East and Chief. The report does justice to Butu. The report does justice to Binga. I want to add the atrocities in Harare. So for starters, the report says there are 45 words in Harare when there are 46 words. So once you start on that basis, Mr. Speaker, what was the answer? You're offside completely. Because we have to get a guesswork. Number two, Mr. Speaker, when you divide the population of Harare, which is 950,102, and you use that formula, you could divide into 210, it means Harare must actually get 34 seats. Instead, it's stuck at 36. And one of the anomalies in Harare, Mr. Speaker, is that you've got words. The average council in Harare is representing 15,000 people. 15,000 people. So the principle of equality is destroyed completely. I want to come to my own constituency, Harare East. So Harare East comprises currently of 3 words. Word 46, which was totally ignored by ZEC. I'm not going to So you've got word 46, which disappeared completely. Then you are now left with word 9 and word 8. Word 9 is Grindel, Mandara area. Word 8, which has got 16,000 people, consists of highlands and newlands. What does ZEC do in its wisdom? Or more appropriately, in its lack of wisdom? They take word 8, I mean, how does it happen, Mr. Speaker? Can you picture highlands, Chisipiti, I want to graphical communication. I want to common interest. They want to choose families. So, description yako manje, hiyo unomina kwa kona, wozenda paka nzisike sina zita, wozenda kwa maye head, wozenda famba. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So, to be very polite, ZEC did the disastrous job. And the chairman was very soft in his report. It was very diplomatic in his report. But the truth of the matter is that was a disastrous report, if the truth be told. So what we are now saying, Mr. Speaker, I'm concluding. What we are now saying is that this House must resolve, that ZEC must reconsider, based on the issues that are raised in our reports, and that the starting point must be the population, the starting point must be equality. Divide 5.8 by 210, get 27,000. Then you can play a bit now, just a bit on the 20%. And 20% is not 40%. 20% is not 20%, 20% is 20%. I thank you very much. 100.